Now, please help me in welcoming our speaker for today, Coach Tom Manning, offensive coordinator at Iowa State. Coach Manning's in his second stint leading the Iowa State offense to great success, and Coach has had previous stops with the Indianapolis Colts, Toledo, Mount Union, Emory and Henry, and also Jackson High School in Ohio. And Coach will be speaking on leading and motivating an offensive coaching staff as an OC. And Coach, I'm going to hit stop share on my end, so feel free to hit share screen on yours. And looks like your PowerPoint is up and
we're good.
Yeah. Yep.
Today, obviously, we want to talk a little bit about, leading, motivating, and I kind of added a little bit of developing in regards to the offensive staff. And I think certainly this is a great tool and to have the ability to speak to you guys about a little bit of this. And I certainly don't have all the answers, but to speak a little bit about our philosophy here at Iowa State and just going through, my experience as a young guy and trying to, be the best coordinator that I can be. I think trying to share some of the things that maybe I've went through from an experience standpoint, and certainly trying to be able to help the best that I possibly can here. And, for me, when I think about leadership, development, and motivation in regards to your offensive staff, I think the most important thing is none of those things can happen in terms of leadership, developing those guys, or motivating, which are all kind of go hand in hand. But none of those things can happen without a certain level of trust. And I think as the coordinator, I think it's really, really important that you're a guy that's trustworthy, and has the ability to be trusted. And I think in our program, we speak of trust really happens in a few different ways. And for us, it is player to player, coach to coach, and coach to player. And obviously, player to player, that's not exactly what we're talking about today, but the coach to coach trust, if that doesn't occur as the guy in charge, as the coordinator, with the people on your staff, I think that you'll never have the coach to player trust. And I think that's a really, really big, important thing. So, a little quote here for us is when we talk about leading and developing people, I think the most important thing that we try to get across, or I try to get across to the guys on my staff, is that really when it boils down to it, that coaching is teaching, and teaching is the ability to inspire learning in others. So as the coordinator, not only do we want our coaches to do that with our players, and as the coordinator, that has to resonate with the players, but I think it's really, really important that there is an element that you are working together, but also that you are coaching those guys that are on your staff, and certainly trying to teach them along the way. So I think it's a little something that I think is really, really important to me. And, I think as a young guy, the first thing that's obviously going to happen is, man, you're getting put in situations, and, man, I have all the answers, or I want to get these things figured out. And for me, I think great coaches, when you look at those guys, they're really no different than the great players that you've ever been around. And I think we all know what it means to be a great, like those, you can point those guys that were great players in your program. And they all usually have some version of these characteristics. Man, those guys, they want to make an impact, and coaches are no different. And particularly the assistant coaches, your position coaches that are, man, maybe they're trying to grow and continue on in their deal. Maybe, man, they just want to be the best O-line coach or whatever it may be. But I think coaches, you have to realize that, number one, the great guys, they want to make an impact. They want to have a role. They want to have a job to do. Most of the great ones, they want to grow and develop, right? They want to get where they're at, and they want to continue to get better with their craft, and they want to grow. And then I think they also want to be, the best that they possibly can professionally. It's like any great football player. I think those guys want to be put, to the limits, and certainly do the best that they can and reach their full potential. So I think as the coordinator, one of our jobs and duties is, number one, not to see them as they work for you. But it's your duty to put those guys in situations for them to be their best. So what I kind of want to do today is talk a little bit about the characteristics of a staff, understanding yourself and understanding the people that are on your staff, And then therefore, what are the things that, man, we're looking to, and how can we maybe incorporate some of these things in the day-to-day basis that really help and grow those guys, and motivate them along with it, because I think those things kind of come hand in hand. I think the first thing when you think about it being in a position of leadership, as the offensive coordinator, is I think you have to take a great deep look at yourself. And anytime that you lead people, you really have to be able to step away and say, okay, who am I really? And the key points, in my opinion, as you look into offensive staff, is for your own self, where are you really strong, right? In regards to football, what are the things that, man, this is the DNA, the fabric of what I believe in football. This is what I really understand. These are the things that, man, I feel really, really good about. And I think when you have the ability to identify those things, number one, that's a strong suit of yours and you're going to play to it. But secondly, I think it helps you identify the things that maybe you're not as good at. And I think that's also really important with your own, what kind of leader are you? And man, what are maybe some personality characteristics that you have as an individual? And, for instance, you know, I know, man, hey, I'm a guy that gets really cranky, right? Like, I like to have fun. I like to enjoy myself. But man, oh man, I know for me, there's going to be points in the week where I get to be a guy you don't want to be around. That's something that I understand, that I have to know how that's going to work in with the people that are on my staff. And I have to do my best to limit that. Um, Secondly, I think it's really huge is, where are your blind spots? Like, what are the things that, man, I, I don't know if I feel great about that, or here's issues that I've had in the years prior to in regards to X and O's, or organization, or whatever that may be, process of game planning. Um, with that being said, where and how do you spend your time as the coordinator? I think identifying what are the ways your process, how do you break things down, how do you view it, how do you see it, and where do you, those strong points that you have, how do you spend your time in regards to that offense, organizationally, structurally, process driven wise? How do you like to spend your time? Where do you feel, because that gives you a great idea how you have to fill in the margins along the outside. um, Taking a look at yourself and understanding what are the non-negotiables. Like, these are the things that I'm willing to die on the hill about in regards to staff performance, meetings, whatever it may be. But understanding, like, hey, what are the things that I know that this is what I believe in and this is how I need it to be done? Because I think you can identify those things and then maybe be able to minimize them and really understand, like, what are the fights that you want to fight. And then having a great understanding of what your process is. What's your process from a day-to-day standpoint? What's your process in terms of big picture installation, to how you treat the players, to how you communicate with the players, to off season, in season, in week, all those kind of things. Understanding what your process is, I think, will give you a great feeling of, how do I utilize people? Um, where can I fill these guys in? How can I make those things better? But I think being really honest with your self-assessment before anything else is really, really important. The second part is knowing and learning and understanding who is on your staff. I know there's a lot of guys, high school coaches here. Who are the people that are going to be touching your players? Who are going to be the guys that are going to be in the trenches with you, and really getting to know those people. Number one, on a personal basis, I think that's incredibly important to the human element of it. But also, I think it's really important from a professional standpoint, from a knowledge-based standpoint, to understand the strengths and weaknesses of each guy in your staff. I think it's really important to know about the history of each guy. What experiences did those guys have that led them to where you're at right now? Understanding that, I think, certainly can help guide you into being able to utilize those guys to the best of their ability, to give you experience there and give you help there. And then also what's their knowledge base? Because everybody's going to be on a different journey, or a different part of their journey in regards to the coaching deal. So where are those guys? Man, maybe a young guy's really, really intelligent, or maybe there's a guy that's really stuck in his ways, just understanding where their experience and knowledge base is. Obviously, understanding their strengths and weaknesses. And I think really giving them an opportunity to show you the strengths and weaknesses, I think is really, really important. Um, and also having the belief that people can change and grow and get better. Um, Probably one of the most important things is finding out how can these guys help you? How can they help your team? How can they help you maybe lessen some of the load on you? But how can they help your team get better? Because that's really what it's all about. And also, how do they interact with your players? I think understanding how each one of those guys, I think that's a great characteristic to understand. Some guys may not be great with players. How do you utilize them? How do you utilize the guys that are, man, we've all been around them that are, man, those guys are just, the players love them. They're intoxicating. How do we help those guys? And how can I use those guys to help our team, whether it's motivationally, whether it's having them present, whatever it may be. I think that these are all really important things in knowing your staff. Furthermore, knowing your staff is understanding how they can help your players. I think we know not all coaches are created equal, but when it all boils down to it, we have to find a way that each guy can help your play. If they can't help your players, they can't help anything, right? So, man, I think that's a great way to understand and get a start for it. And then deep down, what are the reasons that you or someone on your staff hired your staff? Why are the guys there? How did they get there? I think that's a great understanding for getting to know that guy better, maybe finding some of those things that you can utilize, or some of the things that maybe you have to negate or kind of circle around. Um, Obviously, how do you use the staff's experience to your advantage? We talked about that a little bit. Um, and I think this is huge, is where's each one of the guys, and the next two go hand in hand, where are they at in terms of their career? Um, which tells you a little bit, a lot of times, how much skin in the game do they really have? Are they a guy that is hungry and all about it? They're willing to do whatever because they want to continue to grow and get better. Or are they a guy, man, maybe, hey, this is kind of what they're doing, right? And I think that helps you get an idea of how can you utilize each one of those guys, because the goal to lead and motivate and develop these guys is to find the strengths that these guys have. And man, how maybe can you navigate them to be a positive aspect on your football team? And the term that we use all the time with our players and our coaching staff is, are you a multiplier? And there's a lot of different coaches from a lot of different points in their careers, from a lot of different walks of life, that, man, they can still be a multiplier for your football program if used correctly. And that's what we're really trying to do, is find how do we utilize each guy correctly to help your football team. And then the most important thing to me is what guys can help you, where can they help you at in terms of the big picture, in terms of game planning, whatever that may be, schematics, and how can they help you? Because ultimately, the success, the leadership, the development of those guys really comes down to you having the ability to empower them. And by using them, you're going to empower them. By giving them more opportunities, you're going to empower them, and you're going to see a better coach, I think, as you go through. Uh, for me, when you look at the staff in general, okay, and man, here's the guys we have. Here's the things that I think are really important. Obviously, you're going to find these things out about yourself. But number one, knowing each one of those guys' goals really gives you a great idea of what their intent is. And I think it's really a great evaluation tool to find out as if their intent matches their goals. And for instance, man, maybe you have a guy that's maybe at the end, he's a part-time guy. At the end of his goals are going to be dramatically different than, man, a guy that this is his career, this is what he wants to do, he's trying to get, man, maybe he's trying to be a coordinator, maybe he's trying to be a head football coach, whatever it may be. Understanding, I think, those guys' goals gives you a great idea, a litmus test almost, of where does that guy kind of fit in, and how much am I going to be able to use him or help him. I think you have to know how much knowledge they have. And I think it's really important to understand that Each guy is going to be a little bit different on the spectrum of what they know. Are they masters of the position they coach? Some guys are not only masters of the position they coach, but man, they also can add a lot of value in big picture things. Some guys, man, maybe it's your job to help them. They aren't masters of their position coach, but man, of their position group, but man, maybe they are a guy that is they're just super with, and you see the potential. They're super with the kids. They have an aura about them. They have the potential to be a really good coach. And then it's our job to either put them in with people that can help them get better, maybe a guy that has a little bit more experience, or to help them grow in the areas of weakness. But I think knowledge is huge, and certainly understanding where that is. You don't want to have a guy that doesn't really understand a whole lot, but man, maybe he's a good whatever coach. We don't want him in charge of red zone and third down, right? But I think it's really important to understand what are those past experiences. Man, here's a guy that was in the wing tee for 20 years and he knows how to boom, 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 whatever it may be. The third is their skill set. I think knowing a little bit more, not only just their knowledge, but how are they as teachers? Okay. Man, maybe there's a young guy he's a great guy that can utilize the computer, whatever it may be. Okay. But how do I take what they're really good at, okay, and let them shine and flourish in that particular skill set? Also, twofold is finding out how else can I maybe enhance their skill set and help them sharpen their tools and perfect their craft. And then fourth, I think, and this is really big because I think we would all know the first way to destroy a staff and to have no development and no leadership is to have guys with poor character, okay, or ego. And I forgot to we got a little typo here, but I think character is a really important thing. And when it's all said and done, if you can just surround yourself with good people, you're going to always have an opportunity to at least have a chance. So I think that's huge stuff for us. Okay. And furthermore, okay, we have to understand those things. But here's what our job is as the offensive coordinator. Okay. Is number one, we have to hold those coaches, okay, accountable to their goals. So their intent has to match the goal that they have. And I think it's really important to sit down with all the coaches that you have. I always really appreciated that as a position coach, was being able to go sit with the coordinator and say, listen, here's where I'm at, where I think I'm at. How does that match with where you think you're at? Here's where I want to go. How can you help me? Right. And what are the things that I need to do to meet your goals? And you as the coordinator may not have all those answers, but you've probably been through that as a position coach. You've probably been through that maybe as an entry level coach. And I think that's a really important thing to understand. Number one, for you to show on your end that you care about what they want to do with their career, that you care about their goals. That's the thing that it's obviously number one, it's a great leadership part of it, but they feel like you have something invested in them. The second thing is, when we talked about the skill set, but I think you got to even break that down a little bit further. Okay. Who can do what? And then really a big deal of this is who can handle what. There's a lot of coaches that, man, they are, and I always think about it is when you have a computer, there's the hard drive, right? And then there's the RAM. And the RAM is, man, that's the thing that processes the information, has the ability to spit it back out. It doesn't matter how much you know, but it matters how much you can handle and how much you can translate and how much you can pour it back out. So being able to process information is really big. So being able to determine what guys are great under pressure, what guys can handle, man, maybe scripting parts of practice or running parts of practice, taking a little bit of load off you where that may be fit. Because as a coordinator, especially when you're starting out, which I've been through, the first thing you want to do is everything. And I think the guys that have done this for a long time probably feel the same way. You can't do it all. And you have to have guys that have the ability to help you. So who can handle what? And there's ways to find that out. And we'll go through that a little bit later. But who can handle stuff with practice? Who can handle stuff in game planning? What can they handle? who can handle and how can you incorporate guys into meetings? Maybe you have some inexperienced guys that need help running the meetings. Maybe there's some guys you don't want to have run a meeting at all. Whatever that may be, I think finding and locating those things are really important. And then who can help you on game day? I think we all know the guy that comes in, man, if on the day after the game, and man, we should have did this, this, and this. Well, he wasn't helping you on game day, right? So you've already established that that guy can't help you on game day. But man, is there a couple sets of eyes that you feel like on game day can really help maybe provide some clarity to you? And then I think it's really your job. And I think this is the biggest thing in general of creating a gel and a cohesion on your staff is keeping your ego out of it. Okay. I think everybody knows when you are the offensive coordinator, you are in charge. That's been established by the title that you have. Okay. And I think the more that you can make it a collaborative effort and the more that you can take the I said so's out of it, I think that's a really big deal in creating a good, motivated, and having the opportunity to then develop your staff. So I think that's huge. So I think going a little bit more into this, and going back to the title of what we're really talking about, the objective of this whole thing is to lead, motivate, and development, right? And develop your coaches. And it really all comes down to that the environment that you create, okay, it's going to promote what you demonstrate. So if you're a guy that demonstrates it's about me, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get nothing. And for us to all understand at the end of the day, it's not about our coaching staff and it's always about the players. I think that cohesion is really good. So here's the 7 things that I felt like, man, if you do these things, this is the way that you can really help lead these guys in the right direction. Okay, you can develop them to get better on your staff, and obviously, be people you want to keep on your staff for a long time. And ultimately, it's going to help motivate and give these guys the opportunity to want to grow. So the first thing is, I think that's really important for us is how do you cultivate growth on the staff? Okay. The second thing, how can you create a collaborative effort where everybody feels important, everybody has a job, everybody has a role? The third thing would be how can you make these guys have a sense of ownership? So create real ownership in the work that they have. Fourth is creating a belief in your process. Okay. That, man, the people on your staff feel like they're a part of something, number one, a little bit bigger than themselves. And number two, that they feel like they're working towards a meaningful goal. Five, and I think this is huge, is cultivating earned responsibility. Okay. Where people understand that the more that they can do, the better that they can do it, the more that they're going to get. Um, and I think this is huge from the development side and also developing it yourself is I think by doing this, we want to gain pathways to new ideas and really inspire those guys to go out and learn a little bit more. And then 7 is obviously put the best product on field. So breaking each one of these down, the first one, cultivating growth on staff. I think what's a good generic way to do it? The first thing that we really do is I want to get, and it's twofold, by giving our guys some off-season studies. Maybe it's opposing teams. Maybe it's offenses that are interesting to you. Maybe it's just some special projects that you come up with. But giving those guys an opportunity to study, break down, and present those things back to the offensive staff. Number one, you're going to find growth, but it's also giving these guys the ability to take a look at it from maybe your perspective and seeing how are different things that maybe we can incorporate in our offense, try to create some growth and ownership that way. Okay. Secondly, what you're doing by giving projects and studies and those kind of things, and I think this is huge, is you're also being able to determine who has a high capacity or who is a guy that can help you in maybe some thoughtfulness or some of the meaningful things that go into game planning and things like that. Obviously, you can utilize self scout studies. I think that's a great way to start, particularly maybe some young guys that you're not sure what they can handle. And then I think this is really important, allowing your coaches to game plan and give those presentations to the staff and get their feet wet into talking in front of people. Hey, here's what I think we should do. Here's why we want to do it. And then I think they can certainly earn the opportunity to present some of those things to the offense as a whole. And I really believe in that when you allow your other coaches to get in front of the entire offense, I think that's a really, really important deal. And, for me, I think what's really big is learning how much, they know and maybe what some of their strengths are and going forward. And that I can talk about that. Secondly, here is creating collaborative effort. I think obviously breaking some sections down in the game plan, um, and allowing those guys to get some skin in the game and hearing their ideas. And one thing that I try to do is, I come up with in the beginning of the week for us, hey, here's 5 keys to victory. And our deal is everything, and that's kind of like our little Bible that goes around. And everything that we do, okay, when you come up with an idea, the only guidelines and rules and structure we have is they have to make sure that they're fitting in the things that we said we have to do to win the game that week. Okay. And the number one thing, I think this is huge, is never give a guy that can't do something. Uh, Man, I have a guy that he's not a master in whatever it may be, pass protection. Don't put him in the section that he's going to be uncomfortable and he doesn't know. Put them where their strengths are so they feel like, man, I'm confident that I can present some good information here and I can keep going forward. I think it's really big to pair guys. Man, maybe you have a guy that you need to bring along a little bit, put him with one of your better guys and have him be involved in that. And I think this is huge, defining their duties and roles, right? And man, like, this is what my job is. I know what I'm supposed to do and I can go out and do it. But I really feel like the more skin that you can give them in the game, the more empowered they're going to feel. And empowered coaches are better coaches. So I think that's certainly a big thing for us. From a creating ownership standpoint, I think really listen and put thoughts into the input and the ideas that your staff is giving you. I think I fell victim to this, particularly early on, where, man, I'm worried about the time, the structure, all these things, and I'm giving guys projects, but I'm not really listening to the things that they said. And man, take those ideas, think about them, and incorporate it where you see that they're fit. And I also think it's really important for them, number one, to understand that you're paying attention. Ask them questions, right? Man, I'm watching whatever play. Hey, what do you think we can do to make this better? What do you think about this guy's technique? And I think in an environment that's non-threatening, that's certainly really important. And I also think it's really empowering, and it really helps those guys when hey, how have you done this in the past? And I think you'll find a lot of really good answers involved there. And again, I think it's really important, man, to create ownership. The more that you can get your guys in front of your team in general, I think number one, it's important from a player standpoint, but the more that you can get them in front of those guys, they really feel like they're a part of it. And you certainly will see some development there. Okay. Belief in the process, for us, I think allowing the staff to be a part of the whole process and their buy-in will be at an all-time high. I think this is really huge, explaining the why of, hey, here's how I game plan, right? Here's why I do it this way. Here's what I'm thinking about. Here's why we do this way. I think that's a really good deal. And I think as a coordinator, our job is to share our past experiences to help them grow, but also feel like, man, sharing the why with them, okay, it helps create an understanding and develops those guys along the way. And then more important to show them the why, I think show them the how. Okay, hey, here's how I do it. I'm not saying that it's right, but I'm saying that this is how it hits my brain. This is how I like it done because of these reasons. And I think when you do that, you'll see, if you just give somebody a job and they don't understand the how, okay, how do I do it and why do I do it, you'll never get what you want out of it. But I think if you show them the how and the why, you really do have the ability to accelerate their development, and you're really providing them with the roadmap. Number 5 is earn responsibility. And I think this one is really, really big for us. The better you do, the more you get. So the better you do, the more you expect to produce, the more you get going on. The better that you are, the more that is expected. So when you think about it that way and you spell it out for those guys, man, they understand the guy that's not getting that much work, he probably ain't that good. And I think that's a really good motivator, and it really helps develop those guys. And we kind of live by on our deal here that it's better to be trusted than to be loved. And I really believe, man, the empowered coaches, they're better teachers. And for us, we really try to focus on, as a position coach, as a coordinator, everything that we do matters. And the more things that we do correctly, okay, the more the responsibility that we're going to get. And obviously, we all want responsibility. So I think that's a huge part for us. And then six for us is you gain pathways and new ideas. I think there is no one way to coach. And obviously, there's those non-negotiables that you have said about yourself. But other than that, you have to allow those coaches to coach within their own personality. You have to let them be themselves. And I really believe that you got to encourage outside the box thinking. And hey, man, what ideas do you have? What have you studied that you feel really good about? The more, and we'd rather start in our game planning, rather start in our big picture with way more ideas and be able to scale it down, because you never quite know what somebody has the ability to add. And then I think this is huge: incorporating and in utilizing the entire staff and everything that you do. I can't tell you how many times that a graduate assistant has come up with a play that, man, you didn't think about it, and it is an incredible idea. Um, and particularly some of those young guys, not only do they come up with great ideas, but they have a great beat and pulse for a lot of the players on the team. And hey, man, how do we reach player X, Y, or Z? Well, sometimes those guys have a great feel for what those guys are going through and have strong relationships. And I also feel like it's okay as the coordinator, right, to set high standards and to live to those standards. And our deal is this, right? As the leader, it's your job to set the temperature of the organization in your room. So obviously, you're in charge of those guys, okay? And it never has to be a dictatorship, but there is a standard that we have to hold ourselves to. And for us, it's high expectations, high executions, no excuses, no explanations, and do your best and have fun. And that's kind of our deal that we live by. And I think it's really, for us, it's done a great job in terms of developing coaches. And we've kind of lived by this model. And right now, I mean, we have hired multiple graduate assistants and kept them inside of our program and had great continuity, because we felt like we allowed them to grow, develop, and get better as it went. And so for us, the big picture is what leadership, what it really is setting and upholding your standards and expectations. Here, it's how you do the things that you do. It's not really what you do, X and O's. Those things matter, but at the end of it, from a player standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, most importantly, it's how do you do the things that you do? Are you efficient in what you do? Are you detail oriented? I think this is really, really important in terms of being the coordinator and being part of any kind of leadership, because we're talking about developing people. You will never develop anybody, and you will never motivate anybody, okay, if you don't treat them with respect and treat them really good. And I think that goes in, and you don't treat the coaches in terms of what you have deemed or what the organization has deemed their rank. A graduate assistant for us, I use that example because we're in college football. We treat those guys the exact same way as we treat anybody else. You never refer to them as the GA. You never refer to them as the young guy, go do this for me. You treat the people the right way, and you'll have an opportunity to get great motivation from them, great development. And then I think, as a leader, I think it's really important. Your consistency is everything. If you're a guy that walks in the room and you overreact to this, you overreact to that, you're different every single day, that's really hard as a position coach to be your best, because you're shutting the room off. And for me, I think having a room that, hey, this is how I am every day, I think that's really, really important in their growth, and their growth, because, man, they feel like it's an environment that they can get better, and continue to grow. So, with that, hopefully you guys got something. If you have any questions, I would love to answer those things the best I can.
Excellent, Coach. Thank you so much. That was great. And coaches, we will go into Q&A time now. And the way you can submit your question, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Click on that, type your question into me, and I can address it to Coach Manning. So feel free to submit your questions anytime. and we'll start going through them. So, um, first question, Coach, do you have or can you share a postseason evaluation form you possibly use with your coaches, or if you have an overview of it, or whatever you want to share with that?
Yeah, I certainly can. I can dig that up for you guys. And essentially for us, like for me, I'm not a guy that's huge on the form and the rank on 1 to 5 and those kind of things. To me, I really try to keep it as a personal interaction, a personal relationship. Hey, man, here's the areas that, and we kind of, the areas that we really look for. I mean, how are you in terms of your relationship with players? How are you in terms of relationship with the coaches? Right. And then really from there is, here's the areas in terms of, man, from a mastering your craft as a position coach, what are, here's where you're really at. Here's where I felt like the deficiencies were in regards to our players. Here's where I felt like the strengths were. And then here's where I believe, what are your goals? Here's where I believe that you can go and kind of have the opportunity to grow. Man, here's the things that I think I can help you with, and I can maybe put you in position to do X, Y, and Z. But I know I have an evaluation form somewhere. I can get that to you, Alan, and we can go from there.
Excellent. Thanks, Coach. Next question. How do you handle coaches with not so good character or huge egos?
Yeah, the easiest way, and I can tell you this honestly, is with our head coach. If you don't have great character, and you have an ego, like, you probably won't work here. But I think certainly as you go through, for me, I still believe that, man, you're going to have those heated arguments. You're going to have those kind of situations, but the more that you can take a guy one on one that has those kind of what you deem as issues, the more that you can sit him down. Hey, listen, you know, whatever happened here, like, here's the things, and they're negatively affecting us in these ways. And you may agree with them, you may not agree with them, but I'm just trying to help you. And I think that's the biggest thing, is presenting it always as a non-threatening, hey, here's what I see, and here's what people are feeling right now. So, man, I'm just trying to help you, and I want to make you aware of it now, so it doesn't get us in trouble down the road. And usually, a conversation like that, you usually feel like there's a pretty dramatic change right away. Now, it may not hang on the entire year, and you may have to do it again. In my experience, that's the way that I've tried to do it when we have some of those issues.
Great. Thanks, Coach. Can you give some examples of how you have position coaches in front of the team?
Yeah, like so, like for instance, we're installing plays here. We're install a couple pass plays, a couple run plays. I'm going to have the O line coach come up and just talk about, hey, here's the objective of this run play. Okay, like, here's what, just so everybody understands here. Like, man, we're going to aim at this landmark, whatever it may be. So I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page here. Running backs understand this as many times as you can allow other coaches to compliment other players. Man, one thing we do after games is, we kind of give a recap. I'll have the O-line coach come up and, hey, we did this really good. Man, I really noticed this receiver was blocking his rear end off. Man, oh man, that really sprung this play. Kind of interweaving those guys, I think that's a really great experience, because, man, those receivers know that number one, they know who the O-line coach is. Number two, they're getting some sugar for some other guys. So certainly with installation post game, I think is a great way to do it. But another thing I try to do is, throughout camp, throughout early times of the season, I try to have those guys, man, maybe share just a little bit of something about themselves. Hey, here's why I got into coaching. Boom. And just let them talk a little bit from a personal side about some things about their life that maybe they can understand, because you never know what kid could relate to another coach, or however that may be. And so, as many ways as I can do that, even just having, hey, wide receiver coach, come over here and break these guys down here real quick. Hey, tell me two guys that stick out to you, in practice today. I just think as many ways you can have those guys involved.
Great. Thanks, Coach. I'm having a couple coaches asking if they can see some particular slides again. Would you be willing to
Yeah.
share your screen? The two of them were Number 5. Coach said number 5 was beautiful. Can we see that page again?
This one?
Um, I think uh, maybe not slide number 5, but
Oh,
the
number 5. Gotcha.
number
Yep.
5. Um, and then somebody else asked about number 2 as well. So maybe we'll keep 5 up for a little bit and then can throw up 2 here.
Yeah.
Um,
So, yep.
and
5.
Yep, perfect. And then we can switch to 2 here in a second. But next question, I'll be a first year OC inheriting a holdover staff. Any suggestions on how to handle this new situation?
Yeah. I think the first thing is number one, I think really getting to know and know who these guys are, because I think that's a really challenging deal. Um, Number two, and this is huge, I think anytime that you take over a new staff, whether you're a new staff in general or you're going into the situation you're going into, is you never want to talk about how bad whatever it was is before. Hey, what were we thinking here? Like, I think you always want to try to highlight, man, I really liked what you guys were doing. How'd you guys read this play? What were you guys trying to do here? This is really interesting stuff. I think trying to give them as much sugar as you possibly can on the front end, but I think really trying to get to know those guys on a personal level, to understand what they're really about. Because I think when you really try to do that, you'll figure out, man, what guy maybe really wanted this job and da 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 da, and you'll get a great feel for there. And then I think as many things as you can do as projects or what duties to find out where exactly those guys are at. And then furthermore, I think when you can establish who are the players that can really be trusted, if you can get some background, in a non-threatening way about those coaches from some of the players, and obviously not talking, mess about them, but kids will tell you how those guys make them feel. They'll tell you the truth, at least how they perceive it. When I think their perception is really reality. So you can get a great feel for what guys are really what, and how maybe they helped.
Excellent. Thanks, Coach. Any book recommendations that have helped you grow as a teacher?
You know, uh, for me, like it's interesting. I tend the self-help books, like they're not really my bag. I really enjoy the coaching, biographies, and autobiographies, because I think you get such a great, you get a little bit more of what their experiences were. I just read Bruce Arians' book that he wrote a few years ago. Like, you get a little bit of what some of those guys went through, and you can really, to me, the self-help stuff is great. It's not really my bag. I get it. Um, but it's all kind of the same thing. And I like to read about what their experiences were. And man, can I relate any of those things to what I may be going through? And you kind of get a feel for, how they handled situations. But I just read Bruce Arians. I just read Steve Spurrier's not too long ago. I really enjoy those ones.
Great. Thanks, Coach. We have some really good questions here. Um, this one, if and when dealing with an older staff and complacency can set in, what are some methods of empowering, motivating, and keeping those staff members hungry and involved? Um, Basically, get or influence them to want more skin in the game.
Yeah, and that's certainly a challenge, and I think that's a real thing. The number one thing though is I think putting those guys first in situations, because the main thing that you want to do, what happens as the human element is, when you feel that, you want to give them less. And I think if you can particularly figure that out in the off season or the early part of the season, putting those guys in some situations, maybe there's a period that, like, it's not that big of a deal for you. Okay. Like, man, if this period goes really, really good, that's great. If it's okay, okay, cool. But make those guys do some work that's going to be seen by the entire staff. That's going to, if it blows up, there's going to be a reason that it blows up. and give them more on the front end of it. Okay. And almost kind of force their hand. Like, tell me what hey, I'm going to let you script this part of practice. Okay. Well, what is the detail? What does it look like? All those kind of things. And then when it doesn't go great, hey, listen, here's why this happened. Okay. Like, man, we can't have that happen, you know. And I think also just trying to find out, like, hey, you might not have that much skin in the game. Like, do you really want to do this? And why do you want to do, if you can get to know what their why is, sometimes that really helps you. And, you know, without knowing an exact situation, I think that's difficult because I still think it comes down to knowing each guy individually. Um, and then trying to find out, man, maybe there's just a couple little things they're good at, give them that, and then take their suggestions and try them. You know, even if you don't really believe in it, try it early, see if it's something that you might do, and kind of go from there.
Excellent. Thanks, Coach. Really appreciate it. And coaches, we have another session we're about to start up here in a second, so apologize if we couldn't get to your question. And Coach Manning, really appreciate your time. What great insight. And anything else you want to say to the coaches before we log off here?
No, I appreciate it. And certainly I hope I was able to help somewhat. I know these things happen fast, and you know, shoot me an email. I'll see if I can get you guys anything that you need, and go from there.
Excellent. Thanks, Coach. And thanks to the coaches who attended this session. We hope to see you attend the next one here. It's at 8 p.m. Eastern time with Coach Brent Davis, OC at Army, on developing a culture within your offense. And again, Coach Manning, appreciate it. And coaches, thanks for attending. Have a great evening, everybody. Thank you.